Hello there and welcome to episode 62 of Little Big Knits. My name is Selma and I'm coming to you from here in Ottawa, Canada, where winter and spring are struggling. It's been very spring-like, but today there is a layer of snow, not a very big layer, just a thin layer of snow on the ground, which will hopefully leave very soon. But yes, I'm coming to you from Ottawa, where I live with my family and our cat Yoda. And you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Selma Knits. So feel free to come and be my friend on one of those social media platforms. So today we will have a giveaway for the 15,000 subscribers, which I will do later. And I think that I'll be introducing a section called Podcast Corner, where I will highlight some podcasters that are new to me or some that I've been watching for a while. But I'll do the giveaway at that time and also talk about that. And of course, I'll be talking to you a little bit about my knits today, because that's the point of this podcast, is to talk to you about knitting. So we'll be doing that as well. Last time I mentioned to you a pattern, well actually I didn't only mention it, but it was part of the giveaway last time, the Ring-a-Ring-a Roses sock pattern, which I'll put a picture up again here. And I just want to let you know that Simone has donated at least a couple of £100 at this point to the relief effort in the Ukraine. So congratulations on that, Simone. Simone continues to donate money to that effort. So if you want to get yourself a copy and support Simone in supporting Ukrainians at this point in time, then feel free to go over and look for the pattern. And I also want to mention, I had talked to you about buying some sock patterns directly from a Ukrainian designer. Her Etsy shop is called D19 Eco-Friendly Life. She makes wooden products such as sock blockers and gauge swatch measurers, but she also has some sock patterns. So I got a bundle of 3 patterns, and Vicky is the shop owner's name. She lives in Kharkiv in the Ukraine, and she contacted me and thanked me so much for buying her pattern that she gifted me yet another one, which I'll put up here. Really beautiful. So I've decided that my next sock cast on will be one of her patterns to honor that lovely gift. So it's been a great way to support people who have Etsy shops. There are lots of wonderful makers in the Ukraine. And so I was really touched that she reached out to me, and she has been giving proceeds from her sale as well to, or her sales as well to efforts within Ukraine. So yeah, so I just wanted to mention those 2 things before we went on to knitting. There have been lots of people who've put up lists of shops that are owned by Ukrainian makers that you can support if you want. And there's been the whole Airbnb thing. I don't know if you've heard about that, where people are booking Airbnbs that they never intend to go to in order to support people directly in the Ukraine. So that was quite an interesting, innovative thing to be doing. So yeah, let's talk about some beautiful knitting, shall we? So last time I had shown this to you. I had told you that I had lost at Yarn Chicken, and so that I was ordering more. I had cast off the sleeves and done the little ribbing because I intended to turn this into a vest. And somebody actually said, would you actually call that a vest? I would call it a vest. I know that, you know, traditionally a vest is something that came up this way, but there are drop shoulder vests, and I consider a short sleeve sweater that you can wear with a blouse underneath it. I call it a vest. It serves that purpose for me. There's a lot of family activities, so there's going to be some noise here. So I ordered extra yarn so that I could finish the bottom of this sweater, and I told you that I'd probably turn the rest of the yarn into a hat or mitts or something, and then I realized, why can I just not make long sleeves? Which was what I had wanted to begin with, and I just didn't have enough yarn. So now that I had enough yarn, I decided that I would knit 2 sleeves and with some color work at the bottom. And I'm glad I did the color work at the bottom because I actually have just a little nugget left of the yarn. So let me stand up and show it to you. I'm really happy. I've worn it actually a lot. It's got a little bit of bending there from me sitting down, but it's just turned into a very comfortable and lovely sweater. Honestly, I have worn it a lot. I haven't taken pictures for Instagram yet. I'm not quite sure why, because I did take pictures of my other FO that I have, but perhaps today after podcasting, I'll be in the mood to take a picture or 2 for Instagram. But it's just turned out really well, really cozy. As I said, I've worn it a lot. This is the Noux Sweater by Suvi Simola, and I made it out of this yarn that was a gift to me, 2 skeins, which was why I decided to make it into a vest, and then realized I didn't have enough for that, which is weird because it took more than I expected it to. I'm looking outside because it's snowing again. I've lost my train of thought. I was telling you about the yarn. So yeah, so this yarn, which I had 2 skeins of and then ordered a 3rd, is the Blacker Woodland. Out of the colorway is, what was it? I think Deep Forest Berry. And it's a wonderful yarn from Blacker Yarns. It's a new yarn in their shop. And at this point, I can only speak highly of it. I would say that it's got it's a little bit rustic, so it's not super soft. The first time I put this sweater on, I have to say that this other yarn, which is the Hillesvåg Solje in the Rosa colorway, I noticed it right away and I was like, oh boy, this is itchy, but I got used to it. But definitely, I would say this yarn here, the Hillesvåg Solje, is a little bit more hairy. If I bring them close, can you see that? This is a little bit of a smoother yarn, whereas this is a hairier yarn. And so the hairs are a little bit more prickly. But I'm really happy with this. I very much enjoyed. The color work was a lovely, easy color work to do. So if you're a new to color work, this would be a lovely one to make because it's very short distances between the colors. You don't have to manage floats a lot, and it's very regular, so it's easy to manage the rhythm of it. I think this would be a great first colorwork sweater to make. It's an older design by Suvi Simola, but a really nice design, and I really enjoyed making it, and I've really enjoyed wearing it as well. So my next sweater is the Dreyma, and perhaps what I'll do is try it on. Here we go. I am wearing the Dreyma now. So I think it's pretty unusual for me to have 2 sweaters ready like that, but I think with the other one I just had the sleeves to do, so there wasn't a whole lot. And I think when I showed this to you, I had finished the color work. I don't even remember where I was next, but this was knit with Let Lopi on 5mm needles and was a much faster knit. So this has been finished. This one I did take pictures for Instagram, and I've also really enjoyed this. Even though the weather has been overall warmer, there's something really interesting about this Lopi yarn. There is an airiness to it, and I'm actually less likely to overheat in this sweater than I am in this other sweater. And I think one of the things is that this yarn is a little bit more dense than this yarn. The Lopi is extremely hairy. I don't know if you can see that, but a very airy yarn, and I've really enjoyed wearing this. So this is the Dreyma by Jennifer Steingass. It's a little bit of an older design as well. Very lovely design. with some color work at the bottom as well. And just really, really simple but lovely color work also. The other one as well, knit top down. I made a mistake on this sweater, as I had done, well, actually different kind of mistake, but same outcome. If you'll recall, with my striped sweater, I had accidentally made the size smaller up here. This one, I forgot to do a set of, the very first set of increases. I think I told you this last time. And so what I did, I realized it only at the end of the color work, and I thought, okay, let me add a set of increases. If it fixes the problem, awesome. And if not, well, I'll bite the bullet and rip back. But it worked. I added an extra set of increases to make up just about the difference in stitches. I think there was like a 60 stitch difference by the time I got down here. And because of all the different increases that happened without those original 20, it just multiplied. And so I think I ended up adding an extra couple of stitches under here on each side, and it worked out. It worked out. And I've also been really enjoying wearing this sweater. Lovely design, and as I said, really impressed with the yarn. I think this will be a very nice sweater to wear outside, but also it's been relatively comfortable to wear inside as well. Surprisingly, Lopi does have an itch factor as well, but I think I must have quite a high tolerance because I just get used to it. It's so funny because the hairs are so long in here that I sometimes think they're mine, but they actually belonged to a sheep of some kind, some sort of Icelandic sheep. So, so there you go. These are my two finished objects for today. Both really, really lovely makes. I've enjoyed them both. I enjoyed working on them both. I enjoyed the yarn on both. And I'll be very curious to see how the yarn wears. The yarn on the Noux has pilled a tiny little bit, but nothing terribly, considering that I have actually worn it quite a bit. It's been great. So there you go. I think I lied. I think the Lopi is definitely warmer than I realized because I got a little too hot and I decided, okay, I think I need to change clothes again. So those are my two finished objects for this episode. What have I been working on? The first thing I just wanted to share with you, I finished the first sock that I was making out of this Regia tweed yarn. This lovely yarn. I'd made a brown pair and now I made a black pair, and I got through the first pair. I forgot to bring a sock blocker down. However, I seem to have had a bit of an issue with my with my Kitchener stitch, so I have to pull that out in some really good lighting and redo it because I think I ended up having a problem. And I usually find after I finish Kitchener stitch that I need to go and tighten it a little bit. And as I was tightening it, it all got screwed up. So I'm probably gonna have to pull back and redo. But I finished the first sock out of this yarn using my own sort of just a very simple cable design. I made a pair of socks using the same cable stitch called Socks for P. And it's just a very simple 4-stitch cable. And you can go and see my Socks for P to get a sense of what it's like. This has a smaller stitch count than that sock had. That one had 72, this one has 66. But it's really great. So I finished the first one and I haven't started the second one yet, but that will be on its way soon. It's being housed in this great little bag, sort of little bucket bag by my friend Sue, who's got the Tangled Skein CA shop on Etsy. And she makes great little bags for socks. Yeah, so that is one work in progress. The other work in progress is the Crochet Blanket, which is in this huge bag, but it's outgrowing this bag. I finished another row on the Crochet Granny Square Blanket. It's getting quite large. I think I may be showing you the back. I am. It probably doesn't really matter at this point, but this was a blanket that was kind of forgotten in a corner until Mega of Skeins of Dreams talked about it. Talked about, not my blanket, but talked about having a make-along, a blanket make-along. And I decided that's it. I'm pulling out my crochet blanket, and I have been putting on a square here and there. So actually, since the last time, I have added an extra row. So I won't say too much about it, except that I'm really enjoying adding squares onto this here and there. And I don't know the majority of these yarns. This was in my striped sweater, that I can tell you. This is one that a friend gave me, and I think it's a fondant fiber. And they're just different colors, and I'm really enjoying adding them on here and there. It's really fun. I have a bag of squares, and every once in a while I make a new square, and then I add it on. And I'm hoping that this will be a twin size blanket for like a twin bed, a single bed. So I think I'll be doing maybe another 5 rows, and then I'll be crocheting a border, and I think that'll be good. I'm gonna have to put it on a bed to actually see, but so far I'm really enjoying that this got resurrected and is getting worked on. So then it gets all bunched up and put back into its bag. So yeah, thank you, Mega, for helping me to get this thing back on the hook, so to speak, rather than the needles, because it is being crocheted, and it's being crocheted on a 3mm prim needle. Do I have it here? It is here, in fact. It's old. It's been around the block a few times. The handle is getting a little weird and sticky. I don't know if that's something that happens with the prim handles, but I really enjoy working with this. It's really great. So that's my second work in progress. And Mega's make-along is called Blankets of Dreams Mal. I'll put it down here, but you can join in on Instagram if you are so inclined. There are quite a few of us that are enjoying working on new blankets or resurrecting old blankets to work on. So it's been great. All right. I also have my Easter stuff out, because here we are in the spring. I found some lovely pink sort of wooden flowers at Home Sense, of all places, to add to my little collection there. And yeah, so this guy is from Home Sense too, but this bunny is actually a handmade bunny by a local potter. I have no recollection who it is, and they didn't sign it, but I got this at a tiny little show that I just walked into at one point, and I saw this bunny and just fell in love with it. And so it's become part of my little spring collection. All right, which one to show you first? I'll show this one to you. I haven't actually worked on this one in a few days, and I'm realizing that I have a slight issue because I'm running out of this mohair, and I think that the other mohair that I have that's from the same shop, I'm gonna have to really check, but I'm not sure it's the same quality of mohair. So I'm not 100% sure that I'm gonna be able to continue. I'm gonna have to see what I'm gonna do. But I was really enjoying this. This is the Fairy Bouquet by Joanna Ang. And I'm pretty sure I spoke to you about it last time. Had I? Yes, I had cast on. I've gotten to the end of the yoke and have now started the raglan increases. And along with the raglan increases comes the beginning of the detail on the sleeve. So it's requiring a little bit more attention from me, and somehow I got totally sucked into the last whip that I'm going to tell you about a little later. So I haven't worked on this a whole lot in the last week or so, but I had gotten to the point where I've got the markers on and I have done a couple of raglan increases. But this is going to be really beautiful. I also slowed down on this because we are moving into warmer weather, and this is being knit out of a fingering weight superwash yarn by Fine Fish Yarns in, what was it called? The Fink colorway, I believe. But yeah, and she's no longer dyeing. Terry has stopped dyeing, but this was her yarn, and I had got this from her 3-4 years ago. Finally found the project for it. It is a cream yarn that has little pink and mauve speckles going through it. And I paired it with this undyed mohair from Acme Yarns. I told you last time that I was expecting some mohair. Had I told you that? My timing is getting confused. I had ordered some mohair from Knitting for Olive, but I decided that I preferred to continue with this. The other mohair was called it's the Putty colorway, and it actually became a very cold white when I added it to this Fine Fish Yarns, and this was a warmer white. So I decided to stick with this yarn. Now I remember what I was talking to you about last time. I think last time I had gotten to the end of the ribbing, and I wasn't sure if I was going to continue using this yarn or use the Putty. So now I have to make sure that the rest of the mohair is the same quality as this. And if not, if there's going to be a difference. But yeah, I finished the yoke part. Super duper fun yoke, I have to say. It's kind of akin to the ranunculus, where they're just really fun details that are fun to work on. So really enjoyed making this yoke. It's very, very pretty. I haven't gotten into the rhythm of the sleeve detail yet, which has these, it's all knit in rib, and then it's got these wrap stitches that create a beautiful kind of butterfly motif along the sleeve. So I have to see when I'm going to get into this, but I am going to continue knitting it slowly. You may see it a few times before it's actually finished. But so far, really well written pattern, beautiful motifs on it. I think it's going to be a really pretty sweater. I don't think I mentioned to you guys that I had started the knit along called the Connections Mal, actually not a little long, but a make along, which I've forgotten to mention today. This sweater and this sweater were both inspirations for that, because both of these are using yarns that were gifts to me. So my friend Kate had sent me this yarn from Ireland, and then, well, the yarn is from the UK, but she sent it to me. She's in Ireland, and I had gotten a gift certificate, 2 gift certificates for Wabi Sabi, and I had used them to buy this Lopi yarn. So the Connections Mal that we have, the LBK Connections Mal, is about knitting to make connections. So either they are you're knitting or crocheting or making with materials that have been given to you, such as yarn or patterns, or you are making for somebody else, whether it be for somebody you know or somebody you don't know, such as charity. So we've got the group is on, there's a group on Ravelry, for the Little Big Knits group. There's a thread that is the LBK Connections Mal thread. But we also have a hashtag on Instagram, the LBK Connections Mal, and people are posting in there as well. So super fun, lots of beautiful things that people are making, using up yarns and things that have been given to us. So yeah, so that was one of my goals for this year, was to use up as many of the yarns, especially that have been given to me over the last years. However, another goal that I had was also to make some pretty things. I wanted to make some pretty sweaters. And this is definitely, not that this isn't pretty, but just something very, very feminine. And this definitely falls within that category for me of pretty sweaters. I sort of made a list of them, and this was on there. So this is being worked on slowly at this point, and it's being housed in a bag that I showed you last time too, which is by Amelia, who has the Etsy shop called Amelia's Sweet Makes. So I'll be putting anything I mention is always in the down part of YouTube, by the way, with links to shops. So that'll be there as well. So the last make, which I would also put into the pretty category actually, is being held in this beautiful bag that my friend made for me. It's a sort of a Japanese rice bag, and she did a little bit of embroidery on there with some beads, and it's got a pocket here, and it's just a great bag. In here is the beginnings of my next pattern, which I did not talk to you about last time because I had not thought to make this at that point. But I'm going to mention Mega again. Mega of Skeins and Dreams. I was watching her, she did a recap of her sweater makes in 2021. And then there was one pattern by Caitlin Hunter that I had never seen before. And if I'd seen it, I hadn't paid attention to it. And right away I was like, oh, wait a second, what's that pattern? And I went and looked it up. And I have to say, Caitlin Hunter's patterns I often find more attractive when I've seen many other people's makes of them. And this was definitely one of them. I would not have paid any attention to her version of it. But when I saw Mega's, which was one of the first, I think it was the first one I'd ever seen, I was like, that's a beautiful pattern. And I realized that I had yarn that I could use for it, which would also be in the connections, Mal. Also yarn from my friend Kate. Kate does not spend all her money on me, I promise. But I do seem to have wonderful sweater quantities from her. And she had sent me a beautiful quantity, well, actually not a full sweater quantity, I would say more of a vest quantity of the Stolen Stitches Noux. Unfortunately, I have the band here. The Stolen Stitches Noux, which is, and this is the Late Night Blues color. It's a beautiful indigo blue. And this is yarn that is sport weight, and it's basically 60% merino, 20% yak, 20% linen. So with the linen, it's got a lot of heathering happening there, from the linen especially, and it is a beautiful feeling yarn. I must say, I've heard a couple of people say that they would knit with this over and over again, and I can understand why. It's really, really stunning yarn. So I decided to cast on this sweater pattern with it. The sweater is an interesting construction. It's actually meant to be like a short-sleeved little top or layering piece, which I would call a vest, by the way, especially if I were to wear it that way. It's a very fun knit. Unfortunately, because of the heathering of this yarn, you can't see, but it starts with a cabling detail. The cabling detail gets a little lost there. Then you have these garter ridges, and then you have a section of color work with bobbling, which I did do. Then you have some lace, which you won't see well now until it's blocked out. And then you have another section of color work, which is supposed to have baubles. I decided not to do the baubles at that point because I was worried that I wouldn't have enough yarn, and I'll show you my contrasting yarn. I was wrong, but I was worried, and the bauble rows take a long time to do, and I decided I won't do the baubles. And I'd seen lots of projects where people hadn't done the baubles. And now I'm on the last section of lace before you separate for the body and the sleeves, and then the body also has lace on it. Very light, lovely, simple lace. And I've realized, because this has cabling, it has color work, it has lace, it's just got everything, all simple versions of those things. But I realized that simple lace is probably my favorite thing to knit. I really do love a very simple lace pattern. Can I show that to you at all? It's kind of a V. I just find those so wonderfully rhythmic. I get into the rhythm right away. I understand what the motif is supposed to look like, and so I can just generally barely even refer to the pattern and just go with it. And I just love doing it. I love all the yarn overs and the two togethers. It was kind of fun to do this because it's really got so many different techniques. So I have had a hard time putting this down, which is why also the fairy bouquet has gotten a little bit less attention. I've just been having so much fun with this. I've tried it on a couple of times with my barber cables, and it's just been really, really great. So yeah, really, really fun. So pattern by Caitlin Hunter, being knit in the blue is the Stolen Stitches Noux in the sport weight, because I think she does have a worsted weight. And then the color work was a skein that I happen to have actually in my giveaway pile. But I pulled it out and it found a use. This is Holst Garn in the Tides base, which is a wool, 70% wool, 30% silk. And this is the fuchsia colorway. And it has also got a lot of, sort of heathering to it. So it was a very nice match with the blue, and I really loved the color combination. As soon as I realized that I wanted to use the blue, I knew that I wanted some kind of a purpley type of color. This is a bit more pinky. I did have a more purple one, and I realized, no, I really liked this with it. So it's going to be just a fun, pretty knit. So hopefully this will be finished the next time I see you. Because it's a lighter wool, I think it'll be a really nice spring knit. So let's see what is finished next time. And that is the end of my knitting. I have no acquisitions to speak of. I've been following my monthly pledge, and I've bought no yarn. This does not mean that I haven't looked at yarn. This does not mean that I haven't been tempted by yarn, but I have not actually bought any yarn. So, except for the mohair, which will go into another project. But that was, I think I'd already bought that last episode, had I? I can't remember. Anyway, yeah. However, next weekend, I will be going to Montreal for Knit City Montreal, which is being held at the Sheraton Centre in downtown Montreal. It's going to be on the Saturday, April 2nd and April 3rd. Big knitting event. I am very, very excited. And I'm especially excited because I will be volunteering with Akara Yarns. I'll be helping Rose to set up on Friday, and I'll be volunteering at the booth on Saturday and Sunday. I really hope I got comfortable shoes, and I really hope I've got the energy for it. Yesterday we had a fundraiser that we had to do for our kids who are going on a trip together, and we were cooking all day for this fundraiser, and rather than have a sit-down meal, people came and picked up their meals. And at the end of the day, I was so exhausted, and I thought, oh my gosh, I hope I'm going to be okay for like 2 days of full-on customer service at Knit City Montreal. But please come and say hello and give me a poke and give me some energy. If you see me kind of like falling down in the corner. I am really, really excited about it though, and really excited to be supporting somebody and to be experiencing the knitting festival in a different way. And so, yes, if you are going to Montreal for the, or if you're in Montreal, if you're going to Knit City Montreal, please don't be shy. Come by, say hello. I'd love to say hello to you. So I'm really excited about that. And I have a list of items I wouldn't mind buying yarn for. So we'll see what happens. But basically, I'm giving myself a free day. We'll see what happens. We'll see what I have to show you the next time I podcast. All right. Let's talk about a couple of other little things. On the earbuds, my reading has been very slow. I've been reading practically, and when I say reading, if you've been around, you know that what I'm doing is usually listening. I listen to audiobooks. I was listening to American Like Me. Still listening to it very slowly though. Somehow my walks I've had less walks, and when I'm walking, I have not necessarily been listening to anything. So I've been listening very, very slowly. On the screen, I've seen, I finished Ozark, so now I'm really excited to watch the second part of season 4. Quite violent, I would say. So if you can't handle violence, not for you. But something that I really, really like about Ozark is the role of women in that show. There is not, well, first of all, the women's roles are absolutely fabulous. Really great roles. And I find just women are just ordinary people in the show, rather than being victimized, having violence against them in some sort, being completely sexualized. They're just basically ordinary women doing as crazy things as the men are doing. And I really, really appreciate that. It really struck home. At one point I was like, my goodness, like there are so many opportunities for all kinds of things to happen, but it's just really, really refreshing that way. Not that there isn't some aggression here and there or something like that, because it is a violent show, but overall it's neutral in terms of gender, and I really appreciated that. I have also watched a couple of movies. I told you about watching Belfast. I watched The Lost Daughter with Olivia Colman, and I have to say, although people are loving that movie, I really didn't enjoy it. I loved the theme of the movie. I actually thought it was an extremely important story to tell. It's based on a novel by Ferrante, the one who did the Neapolitan series that I read not too long ago. If you've been around and listening to me talk about books, it's based on one of her, Isabel Ferrante? No. What's her first name? Suddenly it's gone away from me. Elena Ferrante. And so it's very similar to the Neapolitan books in the sort of the feeling in the ambience that's created in it. But I didn't really like it as a movie, although I really liked the theme. I thought it was an important story. It's a story about a woman who sort of rejects motherhood, and I think I think it's an important story to tell, and an important topic to talk about. Not everybody loves motherhood. Not everybody comes to motherhood naturally. But I just didn't really like the movie very much. And the other movie that I watched was Tick, Tick, Boom. I had watched it before, but I don't think I ever talked about it, which is a movie by Lin-Manuel Miranda, who did Hamilton, the Broadway show. And this is about the creator of Rent, the drumming Broadway sensation. It's a story about him, and it's a really well put together movie. It took me a while to get into it, but I actually really enjoyed it at the end, by the end of it, and I thought it was really well done, very theatrical as well, and there's singing in it, but I really enjoyed it. That's what's been on the screen. Lastly, giveaway. If you're still here, I had a giveaway last time for the 15 subscriber giveaway. We have 3 prizes for that giveaway. One being the glorious mug that I'm drinking out of again today. Not this mug, but a mug by her, as well as some yarn and a sock tube. So we'll get to those in a moment. We had, oh dear, how many were there? I think they were 600, about 650 entries. Single entries. So thank you for all those entries. Thank you, first of all, for all the positive and encouraging comments for the podcast. Really appreciate that. And as I've said before, I just really enjoy the community so much, and your encouragement and support in your comments and your likes, they just mean a lot. And you know, it's encouraging, right? I enjoy coming and doing the podcast. Of course, that's why I'm here. And I do it when I can do it. because that way it keeps the joy in it. If I were to tell you that I will podcast every Friday, I can tell you that by the third Friday, I would not be podcasting anymore, because it would feel like a job and a burden. And I'm here to share my craft, and that's why and to create community. And so that's what I enjoy about it. Also, firstly, thank you for all those comments. Secondly, I couldn't keep up. I could not keep up with the comments because people were mentioning so many podcasts, and I was taking notes, and I lost it after a while. I was like, I've got 3 pages worth of new podcasts to me. We are like mushrooms. There are podcasts everywhere, and there are so many podcasts that you guys watch. So I decided that, of course, I'm going to mention the podcasts that the winners mentioned, but I'm also going to I decided that what I'm going to do is mention a few podcasts, have a podcast corner at the end of the podcast, or at the end of every episode for the next little while, to mention some of the podcasts that have been mentioned that I've watched, or to mention some that I've checked out because other people have mentioned them from the notes that I've taken. But nothing is stopping you as well from going down below and perusing some and checking out some new podcasts. So before I talk about the podcasts that I want to mention, I'm going to draw the winners. So the first name will be winning a mug or tumbler from Knit Swag. So let me tell you that the winner is Valerie Ehrman. Congratulations, Valerie Ehrman. So if you are in touch with me, then I can give your contact to Kelly of Knit Swag. I think that's the best way, or I'll tell Kelly that you won. Anyway, be in touch in some way. But Valerie Ehrman, you have won a mug of your choice or a tumbler of your choice from Kelly from Knit Swag, and she will send it to you. And Valerie mentioned the podcast What I Knit for Love, which I had never heard of, and I haven't had a chance to check it out yet, but she talked about it being relaxed, varied, and educational. So thank you for that suggestion, Valerie, and congratulations on your win. The second prize was drawn for this lovely skein of Roots and Rain yarn. If you've been watching recently, you know that I knit up a pair of socks out of this yarn and absolutely love it. Donna had an update recently and sold out of her field sock, which is what this base is, and this one is dyed out of marigold. She also gave a little bit of tea and a little stitch marker and a little tag. So this goes to A. McClure. A. McClure, congratulations, you are winning this yarn. So be in touch with me either on Ravelry or on Instagram, and you can give me your address and I will send this to you. A. McClure mentioned the Do So Knits podcast, which she said is lovely and casual, and she says she enjoys it because she's not there for business, she's just there to share the craft. So congratulations to you. And the last winner, who is winning this sock tube that was made by Homebody. And here is Homebody's tag. This is a sock cranking business by Ali and Jess, who also live nearby. And they had donated this tube, which will make a pair of socks with this nugget to go for the cuffs, heels, and the toes. And this is going to Lucie Allé or Aye. Allé. I'll put the name, of course, on the screen. And Lucie, you are winning this sock tube. Félicitations. Lucie mentioned French podcasts, which is great. And she actually mentioned one that I was going to mention to you later on in my little podcast corner. If you are interested in watching any French podcasts, Lucie mentioned Une maille par jour. That is one that I watch regularly. I really enjoy Nancy's podcast. That's the one that I was going to mention to you because I thought that in my list, I'll always try and have one from another language as well as an audio one in addition to those of us who are in English on YouTube. So I really, really love Nancy's podcast, Une maille par jour. She's very down to earth. Her knitting is beautiful. I believe she's a teacher, and at the end, she always talks about books for adolescents, which is a really interesting thing. I don't necessarily stick around and watch that part always, but it's interesting to hear what she talks about. But her knitting is lovely, and I really enjoy listening to her. Lucy also mentioned Les Tricots Maniaques, Tricot Colibri, and Clos Tricot. So those will all be down below in the list of podcasts that were mentioned today. I have not watched any of those, so I'll be checking them out. Une maille par jour, Nancy, she's in the province of Quebec. I don't know if the other ones are from Quebec or from France. So, but yeah, congratulations to the 3 winners. So be in touch with me so that I can either send you your packages or get you in touch with Kelly of Knit Swag so that she can get you a mug or a tumbler. So that was really fun. And thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing and just joining me every time I chat about knitting. So some of the other podcasts that I wanted to mention, these were podcasts that were in the 3 pages that are podcasts that I thought, oh, I will start today. So one is Hey Brownberry with Mars. Mars is a designer who's made several designs at this point. I knit a pair of her socks last year, and I just really enjoy her podcast. It's there's always some sort of knitting content, but there could be sewing as well or natural dyeing. Mars lives in Florida and will sometimes take you out in the Florida nature, which I really enjoy. Just a very quiet, earthy, grounded podcast. Very much enjoy. Another one I want to mention that's new to me that I started watching recently is with Martina. She's Italian, and it's called We Grow Wild. And she's just really lovely, has a very different take on knitting in a way. She just has a lovely, lovely take on life, and I just really enjoy listening to her. There's also Fleece and Harmony, who is a shop and podcast from the East Coast, and they've got lovely, lovely talks as well as they take you sometimes through the mill, and it's really fun. Also new to me and somebody that I've gotten to know is Young Folk Knits with Casey. Casey is a knitter, but also a beekeeper and a chicken keeper, and I'm not sure what else you keep, Casey, but Casey has a lovely podcast and is a beautiful photographer. So the aesthetic in her podcast is really lovely. Casey lives in Arkansas, and so it's just really lovely as well. An audio podcast I wanted to mention is with Sarah Pomegranate on Instagram, and that's Yarns at Yin Hoo. That's an audio podcast, Yarns at Yin Hoo, and she's also somebody just, very interesting, really well spoken, will bring in different things, sometimes poetry and literature, talk a little bit more in depth about certain topics, and just really lovely, and a very nice audio podcast. A couple of other ones I already mentioned, Une maille par jour with Nancy. Dunkelgrün. Somebody had mentioned the Dunkelgrün podcast in the list, and I was like, the Dunkelgrün podcast? I thought she stopped podcasting. But it turns out that she has come back, and I'm really glad to see that. This is a podcast with Anna, who is in Germany. No, she's not in Germany. She's in Switzerland, but she's German. And she's a chemist and a knitter. And she's talked about different things. And she took a long break from podcasting, about 3 years, but she is back and has had 2 episodes since then. So I wanted to give her a shout out. There's also Fiberbound with Alexandra in Australia, who I've watched a little bit here and there as well, and has a lovely, lovely podcast. Recently watched Alexandra, and she had a lot of socks and a shawl, and so experimenting with different yarns and socks, and yeah, really lovely. And then the last one is with Celia, who has a podcast called Hanging On by a Thread, which I also discovered recently and was also mentioned in the list. So I wanted to mention that this time. So Celia's a great knitter living in Norway, Norwegian. And so, yeah, podcasts from all over the place. We've got Florida, Arkansas, Italy. I can't remember where Fleece and Harmony actually are in the east coast of Canada. Isn't that terrible? I'm very sorry. Yarns at Yin Hoo, she's in the States. In Mai Par Jour here in Canada as well. In Quebec, Dunkelgrun, who's in Switzerland. Fiberbound in Australia. And Hanging on a Thread in Norway. So there you go. Podcast corner for the day. I'll link all of those down below. So if you want to check some of them out, you can. And I think that's part as well in terms of the connections for this year, is connecting through our knitting and through our podcasts as well. Thank you for all those mentions. I will probably not be able to get to all of them, but I know that I'll learn about some new podcasts. And so hopefully you will too, by ones that I mention or by looking down below. So there you go. Building our community one stitch at a time, one episode at a time, one skein at a time. And I think that brings us to the end today, friends. So next time I see you, I suspect I'll be holding a few skeins of yarn from Knit City, Montreal. And I hope you'll take care in the meantime. It'll also be warmer here, which I'm looking forward to, very much looking forward to spring and the warmer weather. We'll see you next time, friends. Take care.
The stars have come in close just to see you, I suppose, and they're a-gleaming. You must be dreaming, and the sun has said goodbye with a twinkle in his eye. He's left the ocean with sweet emotion. We go dancing in the rain, riding on a midnight train, away so slowly. And the moon is looking down on the sleepy side of town, and he's so lonely. I love you only. I love you only. All the birds have taken flight. It's their favorite time of night, when they can hear you from somewhere near you. And the palm trees try to bend to be closer to their friends. They're made of magic. Reach out and grab it. We go dancing in the rain, riding on a midnight train, away so slowly. and he's so lonely.